and we're here to talk about business value at startup speed. It's a journey that we're on, and what we'd like to do is share, at least to start off with, our 3 key takeaways that we'd like to inspire you if you're an incumbent firm in this industry, inspire you to think differently about what you're doing. The first one is learning over predicting. As you're approaching solving problems or developing solutions for your customers and your business, learning, testing and learning, doing a little bit of work, seeing if it works is so much better than trying to predict, build up elaborate multi-year plans, and making big bets. So make small bets. Second takeaway, think about delivering outcomes instead of outputs. So what I mean there is, let's say you're building a mobile app. That would be an output. An outcome you want to drive for would be things like increasing millennial share of wallet or attracting more millennials. What you want to do is focus on those business outcomes instead of delivering outputs, delivering software, delivering solutions. Those outcome orientation will drive different ways of thinking and different ways of delivering value. And then finally, we're going to lay out a journey that we're on and a bunch of key elements. It's a hard journey. It's cultural changes, it's procedure changes, it's what does success look like changes. It's hard, but it's very well worth it. So, key takeaways for you for now. Stepping back a bit, again, we're a large mutual fund company. We're actually doing very well as a company. We're industry leading, a lot of cash flow. So you might say, why are we worried about innovation and where we're going with ourselves? The challenge is we see, much like this conference, there's a lot of fintech innovation out there. There's new entrants into our market, rising consumer expectation, regulation, new markets, you name it. And the things that made us successful in the past won't necessarily make us successful in the future. And so we need to do something different. And among the things we've done is we're looking internally and reflecting of what we're like, and probably this might resonate with, again, other incumbent firms out there. We find ourselves to be at times too slow, it's too expensive to get anything done, and our level of innovation isn't where we want. You know, we aspire here, we don't have enough Steve Jobs or that kind of output. And so we don't think we're unique here. We don't think the Vanguard is struggling uniquely here, but it's a challenge of incumbents that have these symptoms. And these are all sort of market-facing behaviors. But if you're in Vanguard, it can sometimes feel like this. Talented people, passionate, they want to help investors, they want to help our clients, but you're making a lot of energy and not much forward progress. And so what we've decided is we're not going to accept that this is the fate of incumbents, of 40-year-old companies. We're going to do something different. And so we've launched this program called Business Value at Startup Speed in partnership with ThoughtWorks. And there's 3 parts to this journey. The first 2 are very technical, but very critical for us to get speed. And the first one here is next generation applications. There's a better way to write software. Right now, we write large monolithic applications. They elevate every quarter. You can't test and learn in that environment. We want to embrace continuous delivery, so we can, every day or 2, we're releasing software and test and see if it works. Very critical. We also want to leverage the cloud, so that when we're operating in the cloud, we can take advantage of the innovation and the speed that the cloud offers. And finally, the lean operating model, which is the mindset that figures out to build the right thing, whereas the technology allows us to build the thing right. I think Anish will talk more about that.
Thanks, John. We at ThoughtWorks are really privileged to work with firms like Vanguard, and we're proud that many of our ideas have been so influential with so many different financial institutions. And when we think about what John just shared about the core Vanguard strategy, it's important to remember just what they're solving for. We want to listen to our customers, understand what their needs are. We want to focus on building the right products, and we want to build them right. We want to use test and learn approaches. We want to work quickly, iteratively, adaptively, and we want to do it fast. That is what allows us to work at startup speed. I would imagine that most of you would find this pretty self-evident. This is a fairly simple idea to conceive of and to grapple with. It's really hard to put into practice. So for us to really understand what the constraints are, let's actually explore the root causes. So many of our clients, so many of the folks we speak to in the industry describe themselves like this, a big lumbering ship. And when we think about why they are, it starts with funding. So many of you right now are probably in the middle of your budget process for 2017, and you're asked with a level of precision to know exactly what your customer is going to want of you over the next 15 months and beyond. And not only are you going to determine exactly what you want to build and what you want to focus on, you're going to determine and define exactly what you're going to do, by when, for how much. And the question always becomes, when we get to that kind of precision, because our budget processes demand them, where does customer feedback fit in? Where does the market demand fit in? What we're focusing on is the ability to learn, not predict. How can we determine the most effective ways to meet what our customers want of us and use our funds, the investments that companies are making in these products, to actually meet a market need? So when we think about what the traditional budget process actually has our teams do, they're now focused on delivering the tasks, the activities, the outputs, the defined requirements. And when they're working on requirements, what they're not focused on is the business outcomes that they actually need to drive. And so how do we have teams that start to resemble, instead, a flotilla of speedboats? This is how this works. Teams are focused on customer needs. Some of those customer needs are folks like you and me, customers in the market. Some of those customer needs are internal customers. All of these teams are autonomous, empowered to explore new ideas, use modern software techniques and engineering disciplines to quickly determine what works. And that's what gives these organizations agility. Let's actually not think about this as a conceptual model. This is actually how Amazon thinks about itself. Amazon is a firm, as we all know, that's many, many times larger than most of the firms in the room. And yet, they have the organizational agility because they've actually defined this customer centricity at the team level. So why don't financial institutions explore this model? We hear constantly, it's not for us. We're highly regulated. How could we actually move this quickly? How could we experiment at scale, given all the regulatory requirements that we have? And what I'll share with you is we're working with one of the largest investment banks to fundamentally rethink that defense function, risk and compliance, to resemble just this pattern. And so what I'll leave you with is when leading companies like Vanguard, like some of the largest investment banks, are fundamentally rethinking how they organizationally go about producing business value with teams that are empowered and autonomous to find out what works through experimentation, we explore you to actually figure out your next step on how to do the same thing.
So this journey that we're on is, there we go. It's a long journey, and we know it's very challenging for us to get to the speed of a fleet of speedboats. Here are 3 books that inspired us, if our 10 minutes together haven't completely changed your company's culture. But these lay out both the technical underpinnings as well as the leadership skills required to survive in this mode of operating. We're early on in our journey here. We've started some pilots earlier this year. And just a couple early wins that we're seeing as we're going forward here. One of our teams was doing some experimentation, needed to experiment on the web. And this business area had never done that, had never done A/B tests in front of their users before. What about the regulation? It's going to cause phone calls and people are going to freak out, and lots of fears, fear. What we found is lots of meetings. We worked with those teams to come over those fears and launch that first tiny experiment. It worked great. We learned, no phone calls, no chaos. And then we did more and more and more. And now that business is very accepting of test and learn. Let's try things. What's exciting too is that the mindset of the people in the room, there's light bulbs go off on these teams. They had to unlearn a lot of behaviors, but now they get it. They're like, yeah, of course aim for outcomes. Why would we do projects? We should drive towards more millennial sales, if you will. Why are we predicting what's going to work? Let's test and learn our way there. So we've seen the early sparks of light, both on the teams and the management chain, but there's a lot of work to do. Budgeting we have to tackle. What does success look like at Vanguard? But the hope is, rather than being in that hamster in the flywheel, we look like hamsters going to outer space without spacesuits, or going very fast, delivering value for our clients. We're excited about this journey. If you are feeling similar things or your company's going through similar issues, we'd love to trade stories. Thank you for your time. We think it's a great journey for us, and we hope it is for you too. Thank you.
Thank you.